Rockets and Knicks were in Game 5 when O.J. started that fateful drive. His four-way hazard lights were blinking, and no one knew what the Jews was thinking.
I've been to Reno, Chicago, Fargo, Minnesota, Buffalo, Toronto, Winslow, Sarasota, Wichita, Tulsa, Ottawa, Oklahoma, Tampa, Panama, Mattawa, La Paloma, Bangor, Baltimore, Salvador, Amarillo, Tocopilla, Barranquilla, and Padilla. I'm a killed. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert bare, man. I breathe the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere.
This is Oversight Live, your advocate for good governance. We're putting the site back in. Oversight. Here's the watcher on the wall, your host, Ben Carpenter.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to Oversight Live. I am Ben Carpenter, your host for this evening. Thanks for joining us. Hey, look, Oversight Live exists to bring you good content, timely and appropriate content from our state capital. For Alaskans, it's hard to get to our state capital because you can only get there by plane and by boat, by ferry. There's no road. So that lack of road creates some problems in both cost and time for us to provide proper oversight of our government. But technology being what it is, we can see what's going on. We just have to filter it and know where to look. So that's what we're going to do. I spent 6 years in the legislature. I am going to provide you with my assessment and provide you with the information that I know where to look and find it. And I'll show you where to look and find it so that you can go and look yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. The advantage is you don't have to take the liberal press's spin on things. You can go find the actual source of the information and get it firsthand. If you're listening to me, in all full disclosure, I'm a limited government fiscal conservative. So that's the lens by which I'm going to look at things and present them to you. You get to make up your mind and your opinion, though. If you've got questions while we're having this show, go ahead and enter them into the chat window there, and I'll try to answer them real time. If you're watching the recording and want to drop me a question or have a comment, send an email to producer@oversightllive.com, and I'll do my best to get back to you on that. We're going to attempt to have fun. Some of this government stuff is hard to have fun with, but I'm going to do my best to have fun doing this. Okay, so without further ado, what are we doing? What are we doing this Monday? Well, pretty slow in the legislature today, being that this was a end of a Easter weekend. Took a while for everybody to get back, and not a lot of meetings scheduled. So they're going to hit it hard and heavy on Tuesday. There was a floor session, House floor session today, at least. What I'm going to bring you is Senate resources from last week. Happens to be April Fool's Day, the 1st. Don't know how it got by me, but this is really important. I have been saying for a while now that there are some people who have ulterior motives with regard to our effort to get a gas pipeline built. Well, what happened in Senate resources is probably the greatest indicator that somebody wants to see the project scuttled in its current form. Okay. So we're going to talk about that today because it's really, really important. You ready? All right. Let's get to the add that to the stage there. Okay. This is Senator Giesel's committee, Senate resources from the 1st. So let's hear what they have to say about this bill that they're talking about, which is HJR 18. You can look that up if you want, and we'll take a look at it here when we're done watching what the committee's going to do here.
Support for AKLNG. Today is the first hearing of this resolution. Here to present the resolution is Representative Mia Costello and possibly her staff, Zach Young, but perhaps not. Welcome, Representative Costello.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Giesel and members of the Senate Resources Committee. It's a real pleasure to be here today. And I'm Mia Costello. I represent District 15 in Anchorage. And I wanted to mention before I got started that we used to have co-prime sponsors in the legislature. And essentially, Senator Rauscher has been a co-prime sponsor on this resolution. He and I introduced it together in the House, and then he was there when we presented it and it went through the House. So I just wanted to give him some thanks for this, for the support in this effort. So
Senator Rauscher just recently moved from the House to the Senate.
Alaska's been considering a gas line for decades. We first saw Congress pass the Alaska Natural Gas Transportation Act in 1976, signed into law by President Ford. Since then, we've gone through many different efforts to have a gas line in our state. As you know, we are a resource-rich state, and now more than ever, I believe we're closer to having a gas line in Alaska. And your committee is doing some really deep dives into the projects that we have, and the different questions that you've been asking, I think, are very important. But this resolution essentially is an opportunity for the legislature to speak on this project or on a gas line. We see a federal administration that is very supportive of a gas line. The Secretary of Interior, Burgum, is supportive. The Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, and then Lee Zeldin, who's the Director of the Environmental Conservation. Our congressional
EPA
delegation is very supportive of a gas line, and our governor is very supportive of a gas line. And so as we see this project move forward again in this newest iteration, I thought that it was important, along with Senator Rauscher, that the legislature speak to it in the form of a resolution. And so that is why we introduced this resolution. And you and I have had a chance to speak about it briefly. And so that's what I'm bringing forward, is so that the legislature can have its voice related to a gas line project as we move forward.
Very good. Thank you very much, Representative Costello. Any questions from committee members? All right, seeing none, we do have 3 individuals who are invited testimony on this, and I will take them in the order that I was given. So first up is Skeet Black. He's the president of the Alaska Support Industry Alliance. Mr. Black, welcome to the committee. I will let you introduce yourself and give us your testimony.
Thank you so much, Senator Giesel. Madam Chair, members of the committee, for the record, my name is Skeet Black. I serve as the president of the Alliance. We're a professional trade organization representing more than 550 member companies and over 35,000 hardworking men and women, Alaskan hardworking men and women, by the way. Our members are the engineers, welders, equipment operators, logistics providers, and small business owners who make Alaska's oil and gas industry function every day. I'm here today in strong support of HJR 18. I'm recognizing the importance of the Alaska Liquefied Natural Gas project and urging federal leaders to take all necessary actions to move this project forward. You know,
it'll become clear in a minute or in a few minutes here, but notice that he is specifically talking about this project that we have sitting before us. Okay.
It's not just another project for Alaska. This is generational. You know, I grew up here. I was alive when the pipeline was being produced and being made, and it was a huge thing for our family, which was in construction at the time. And you know, my family and our members understand what it means to build and sustain large-scale energy infrastructure in some of the most challenging environments in the world. We've done it before, And many of our members were here more than 50 years ago helping to build the the Trans-Alaska Pipeline System. They took on that challenge at a time when critics said it couldn't be done. And they actually have a saying, which is pretty funny, that a lot of the old timers from that project said they just didn't know it was impossible, so they went ahead and did it. And you know what? We have that same grit and ingenuity today. That determination still defines Alaska's oil and gas workforce. We're ready to do it again. The Alaska LNG project represents an opportunity to put thousands of Alaskans to work to create stable, long-term careers and to inject billions of dollars into our state's economy. But what's really interesting, this project is more, it's about more than just the jobs. And those jobs, they matter deeply to the families and communities that we represent. But it's also about affordability and reliability here at home. Access to North Slope natural gas through this project has the potential to provide long-term, stable energy for Alaskans, helping to reduce costs for households and businesses while ensuring a dependable, durable supply for decades to come. And it's importantly, it's about opportunity. And I think we need to keep that in mind. The pipeline's not just steel in the ground. It's a corridor of economic expansion. It opens doors for new industries, new investment, and new revenue streams that can support essential public services across the state. For the companies that I represent, large and small, it means the ability to grow, to hire, and innovate right here in Alaska. But none of this happens without partnership and urgency at the federal level. That's why this resolution matters. It sends a clear and unified message that Alaska is ready, Alaska is willing, and Alaska expects action. What we need now, we really need alignment and action. On behalf of the 550 companies and 35,000 Alaskans that we represent, I respectfully ask for your support of this resolution and for your leadership in advancing a project that is critical to Alaska's economic future. Thank you very much, Senator Gasline and committee members, for allowing me to talk today. It's an honor, and I appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Black. Committee members, questions for Mr. Black? Seeing none. Next up, testifying is Heidi Olson. Heidi is Industry Relations with the Associated General Contractors. Ms. Olson, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, for the record, my name is Heidi Olson. I represent the Associated General Contractors of Alaska, a statewide organization representing well over 600 general contractors, subcontractors, service providers, and suppliers. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of House Joint Resolution 18 and the continued advancement of the Alaska LNG project. From the perspective of Alaska's construction industry, projects of this scale create broad, meaningful economic opportunity across our state. First and foremost, projects like this mean jobs, high quality, high paying jobs for Alaskans. The construction industry stands ready to meet that demand by committing to hiring, training, and investing in a skilled workforce for the long term. That includes not only experienced tradespeople, but also young Alaskans looking for a pathway into stable, high-paying careers. This is an opportunity to grow our workforce here at home and strengthen Alaska's labor market for decades to come. The benefits extend well beyond direct construction employment. A project like Alaska LNG supports a greater network of Alaska businesses, large and small, including trucking companies, material suppliers, equipment dealers, and service providers in communities across the state. This kind of activity moves dollars to local economies in very real ways, supporting entire communities. When Alaskans are working, that means more activity across all business sectors and opportunities for people and families to invest in their futures, keeping Alaska resilient and competitive. Equally important is the stability that projects like AKLNG provide. Alaska's construction industry is highly capable, but it depends on consistent opportunities to retain skilled workers and sustain local businesses. Long-term projects help provide that continuity, giving companies the confidence to invest in their workforce, their equipment, and their communities. Finally, I would be remiss not to mention that our members are also ratepayers. Like many Alaskans, they would gladly welcome the possibility of more stable and affordable energy costs for their homes and businesses. It's one benefit of this project I don't think you'll find much disagreement on. We recognize that projects of this scale come with important considerations, and we appreciate the thoughtful process underway. From our perspective, responsible development of this project represents a significant opportunity to strengthen Alaska's economy. HJR 18 sends a clear message that Alaska is committed to advancing that opportunity. On behalf of Alaska's construction industry, we respectfully urge your support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Ms. Olson. Any questions for Ms. Olson? All right, seeing none. The third invited testifier is Matt Kissinger. He is the commercial director at the Alaska Gasline Development Corporation. Mr. Kissinger, welcome. If you'd identify yourself for the record and give us your testimony.
Yes, hello. This is Matt Kissinger with AGDC for the record. Madam Chair, I was actually under the impression I'm here to answer questions if there are any. Though obviously my testimony is that we are in support of this joint resolution. We think that this sends a proper message to the federal government, both of appreciation and that Alaska supports this path forward in building the line. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kissinger. I was told you were invited testimony. So regardless, thank you for speaking today. We have an updated language for a work draft, and I would look to Senator Wielechowski for a motion.
Okay, so I need to just okay. What Senator Giesel is doing is popping up a committee substitute. So this is taking the resolution that came to her committee and setting it aside and bringing forward a different resolution that's built upon that one, but it has enough changes in it that they don't want to do the amendments. They don't want to go through an amendment process to vote on the changes. So they will just bring this committee substitute forward and call it a working draft or working copy. Okay. So this we'll look at it here in a minute because this is important. But the words that she's using is just saying, hey, we've got some updates that we're just going to update it. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee adopt the Senate Resources CS for HJR 18 Work Order 34-LS0837/H as in Healy as our working document.
Thank you. I'll object for purposes of discussion, and I invite my staff, Paige Brown, up to explain the changes in the proposed CS.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Paige Brown, staff to Senator Giesel. Members did receive a red line version of the proposed CS with their documents this morning, but the two major changes were we broadened the project language and we removed all the polarizing language.
Okay, broadened and removed polarizing. Okay, so remember those two things because it sounds like they're just simple changes and there was a mistake or there was, wording that was not helpful. And so we're going to remove that unhelpful language because it was polarizing, right? It offended people and it would be better if we didn't offend people. So we need to figure out what that is because we really don't, Mia Costello and Senator Rauscher brought forward this resolution and they drafted it. And Senator Giesel's saying, now we need a committee substitute. The Democrats on the committee and Giesel, right, are saying we need a committee substitute because that there's polarizing. So I bet you can guess already, since Mia Costello, Representative Costello, indicated that there was federal support for this. I bet you can understand where polarizing language might be coming from at this point. It has something to do with TDS. Okay. I'm going to show you the red letter, but we're going to get through this because I want you to see kind of the smoke and mirrors here. We're not going to make any big deal of this. We're just going to make it happen.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Questions for Ms. Brown? Senator
That was the introduction.
Rauscher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, so just reading through it, I think there's 10 instances of natural gas, liquefied natural gas that were taken out, and I'm wondering why was liquefied natural gas taken out of it?
Could you identify those locations, please?
Page 1,
Oh,
line
answer your
1,
question.
Okay.
line 2, line 6, line 12. Page 2, line 7, line 18, line 23, line 27, page 3, line 2, line 7.
Thank you, Senator Rauscher. The purpose of the resolution was to promote a natural gas pipeline.
No.
And so that was what's emphasized here.
No, that's not the purpose of the resolution that was given to her committee. The resolution that she received was to promote the Alaska Gasline project. The one that Glenfarne is pushing has been asked to take to FID and to build a pipeline. That's what the resolution was drafted to support that project, to have the legislature say, we would like this project to move forward. That's what the intent of that resolution was. You'll see it here in a minute. She's blowing smoke. This is a lie. It's a bold lie. It's not even, it is, it's deceptive. It'll be clear once we look at the bill.
broadly proposing the natural gas pipeline.
Broad?
And the
No.
proposed liquefied natural gas project is referred to on page 2, lines 12 through 15, that I can immediately identify. So that's response to your question.
All right.
I'm so kind.
Sure. Senator Dunbar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually have a question for Mr. Kissinger, if he's still online.
I believe he is. Mr. Kissinger, are you still there?
Okay. I think we've gotten enough from the committee here. They're going to adopt this. All right. Sorry, I need to. We're going to look at the actual bill. If I pull up the right one here, let me make sure I got that. Okay, I got it right. Okay, let me make it a little bigger for you. You all know where to find that, right? So this is House Joint Resolution 18. Then you just type that in at AKLNG.gov and this comes up, okay? So let me make it a little bigger. That's maybe a little too big. There we go. Okay. I've got the Documents tab selected over here. This is important because if you go to the Full Text tab, you're going to get the resolution, committee substitute, right? It's not just an update. It's a complete rewrite of the bill. Committee substitute for House Joint Resolution 18, resources amended. Okay. So if you click on this icon, this is going to take you to the bill. Okay. So here's the bill. You read through it and you're like, oh, well, it's in support of an LNG project. Okay. I'll take an example here. Whereas we're looking at the second whereas. Whereas the Alaska Liquefied Natural Gas project, a long envisioned pipeline and export facility connected North Slope markets, would create thousands of high-paying jobs. Where's the? Let's see here. Okay, what I need to show you, so it makes more sense, is go to the red line version. So here is the red line version. It is not always provided. You find in the documents if the staff, committee staff, add the red line version to the documents for the bill, for the committee meeting, then you'll have this here. But not all bills and not only all resolutions Not all pieces of legislation get this red line version uploaded so that you can review it. Okay. Here's what the red line version looks like. What it does is it shows you what is added in red underline and what is deleted or subtracted with the strike through. Okay. So here's the crux of the issue. What the bill used to say is supporting the continued development of the Alaska Liquefied Natural Gas project and recognize the importance of the Alaska Liquefied Natural Gas project to the economy of the state, energy independence, and national security. Okay. What it says now, this is the title. What it says now is supporting and recognizing the importance of a natural gas pipeline project in the state and urging strike out Trump, strike out Interior Secretary, the federal agencies, federal government to take all necessary actions to expedite the natural gas pipeline project. Okay. So you remember a number of meetings, a number of episodes ago, I sat here and told you that I suspected that there are people at play who want to scuttle this project. They want to scuttle it for some reason. And I haven't identified exactly what the reasons are. They could be more than one. There could only be one. But somebody wants to scuttle this project. I don't know whether it's because of the labor agreements that haven't been signed or potentially because you've got a private company in charge. There's this fear that organized labor is not going to be part of the project. I don't know whether this is preference for importing LNG, meaning if you build an import terminal, if you spend the money to build an import terminal and import LNG, building a pipeline kills the import facility. It kills the need for import. So if there are players in the state of Alaska that would like to see the import of LNG, like the parent company of NSTAR, they would be supplying LNG from Canada. It's the closest source. So they would like to see us buy LNG from Canada. A pipeline means we're not going to buy LNG from Canada. I don't know whether this is an intent of this socialist concept that we need to have a state-run pipeline, state-managed pipeline. This is what it, back when in 2012, 2013, when this whole effort started, you had the state owner, AGDC, owning and trying to put this project together. And you even had the majors in this state bow out. Exxon, Mobil, BP, they all said, no, we're not going to participate. We, for lack of a better word here, or lack of a better description, we don't trust the legislature. We are not going to get into business in putting together a pipeline that's managed and owned by the state of Alaska. That's the project that has spent a decade AGDC's been trying to get off the ground. They did all the permitting. They got it to the point where nobody else in the private industry wanted to participate with the legislature and with the state of Alaska on building this pipeline. AGDC finds a different model and says, you know what? Let's bow out and give the 75% ownership to a private company who will spend their money and take this project forward. Okay. And that's what has happened. That's what Glenfarne is. So you've got Democrats, liberals, socialists on our Senate Resources Committee. I throw Giesel in there with that, who for some reason want a resolution of support for a project to be a project, not this project. We don't want this project. This is the closest that I have come to yet to show that people want to scuttle the project. Whereas, and we take out the Alaska Liquefied Natural Gas project. Now it just says where a state has long envisioned a pipeline and export facility connecting to North Slope gas markets could create thousands, so we're going to delete would, because it would create thousands of high-paying jobs, but we're gonna cast doubt and say, it could. This is like let me stay focused here, okay? Again, and this is what Senator Rauscher was getting at. Why did you get rid of the word liquefied? Well, it's not the word liquefied that you were getting rid of. It's the entire project. It's the focus on the project. It is changing the resolution from focusing on the project that is sitting before us, that we can see a path forward for getting it done, in favor of a natural gas pipeline project. Doesn't have to be this one. It could be something else. We don't need this one. We can do away with this, and we can play our cards right and hold out for a better deal. A spur line to Fairbanks has always been not part of the project, but part of the intent of the project. There's not a future with this project that doesn't have a spur to Fairbanks. Okay. The addition of this doesn't mean that it was missing in the expectation of the project. Okay. All right. So now we're going to take out all of the language that's referring to President Trump in identifying to Congress and to others that this is one of the reasons that Trump's executive order of unleashing Alaska's extraordinary resource potential, that's the label of the executive order, supports this particular project, not a project, this particular project. Inserting a pipeline project. Potential federal funding. Whereas, and then we're going to cut out Trump again. Whereas a Gasline project, get rid of Alaska Liquefied Natural Gas project again, and just say that the state has for decades advanced environmental reviews and permitting for a state natural gas pipeline project. Okay. It is very clear that the committee substitute that Giesel has put forward here, that the Democrats on the resource committee have put forward, it's the majority of the committee, right? So she may, we could give her the benefit of the doubt and say, well, she's the lone Republican on the majority of the committee, and so maybe her hands are being tied by those rascally Democrats. But I don't believe that for an instance. I've seen and heard too much from her. This is their idea. Okay. This is the closest. This is the. It's not a smoking gun, okay, but it's the closest evidence that I have that Senator Giesel and Senator Wielechowski are attempting to scuttle this project. They want to see this project fail, and I don't know why. I suspect that it has something to do with a few things. Importation of LNG and who stands to benefit, labor agreements that don't currently exist. I think that's a potential. And I think it's just the socialist nature of our government that says we would rather have a project that we own. We had more than a decade to advance that project. And private industry did not want anything to do with it. And I'm not just talking about the majors who stepped out early on. BP, Exxon, Conoco. I'm not just talking about them. I'm talking about financiers. I'm talking about countries that would sign agreements. I mean, and I've heard testimony. I've heard statements that even Governor Walker's attempt to go to China wasn't necessarily going to go forward either because the legislature was going to be in control. So this is the problem, is that everything that's being pushed right now through Senate Senate Resources is an attempt to do something different than what we have before us. We don't want to address the governor's bills regarding tax law statute modification. We don't want to address that. We don't want to put a resolution forward here to support this. You've got another bill that's facing the legislature here. I think I've got it up. Yeah, I can stop sharing, move. This is another one of the bills. 275, House Bill 275. Request by the Rules Governor, an act relating to appropriation limit spending for an effective date. Okay. Another bill that they've modified. And it's sitting in House Finance. They actually have not modified it yet. Another bill that if they tinker with it can affect this project. Okay. The point that I'm getting at is this legislature is the worst business partner that Glenfarne could possibly have with regard to trying to get this pipeline through. It doesn't appear that there are many, if any, outside of a few minority members who want to see this project go forward. Matter of fact, last week we had former U.S. Senator Mark Begich sitting in front of the same committee telling the rest of the Democrats on that committee that we need to modify the tax regime in order to make this project go forward. These people can sit there and speak out of both sides of their mouths and say, we want to see a pipeline project go forward. And that somehow to some of us says, oh, well, they must support this project. But this evidence, this what they have done to House Joint Resolution 18 tells me that they want to telegraph that they don't want this project to go forward. And I don't know why. I don't know. I think the legitimate question for people in the districts of those members that are on that committee, that's Senator Kawasaki, Senator Wielechowski, Senator Giesel, Senator Clayman, who's running for governor. Those are your, who's the other Democrat there on the far left? Dunbar, Senator Dunbar. Those are the ones that you need to ask the question of. What are you thinking? Why are you going, like, if it's a fundamental question over taxation, if it's just a fundamental question over taxation, you don't have to do this to this resolution. Remember, this resolution doesn't do anything to statute. It doesn't affect anything other than it is the legislature speaking its mind. It's a resolution. It gets handed over to federal delegation, right? It says who it's going to. It goes to the world. It says, look, this legislature wants to see this project move forward, this particular project. And they have taken the language out that references this particular project. So if it's literally just a conversation about taxation, and here's a valid concern, and this is a balancing act that has to happen, and it's not a unique situation to Alaska. The legislature is a public entity. It, in some cases, demands transparency. And Glenfarne and the project development is a private entity with many confidential agreements. And there is a butting of heads. There is a conflict that has to be resolved between the legislature's demand for information and the project's demand for confidentiality. Other jurisdictions have had this problem and they figure out a way through it. Okay. If that's the only problem that we have with this project, if that's what Senator Giesel and Senator Wielechowski and all the others, if that's their sticking point, and I can understand that it's a philosophical question. What is the right taxation? If that's really the question, then you don't have to do this to this resolution. You don't have to change the wording that says we'll take any project. We're not interested in this project. That's what you're saying by removing it. Removing the language about this particular project and just keeping it general for any project. Okay? You don't have to do that if you have a legitimate concern over what the proper taxation is. That gets addressed in a different bill, and you can have that legitimate conversation. You can go into executive session and have a behind closed doors meeting about confidential information. That's all within your purview as the legislature. This is a completely different message. We're not interested in playing ball. We don't want this project. So Alaskans ought to be asking the question, why? Why does Kathy Giesel not want this AKLNG project to go forward? Why does Matt Clayman, who wants to be governor, why does he not want the pipeline to be built and for North Slope natural gas to be coming to South Central Alaska? Why are they telegraphing through this committee substitute, this bill? Why are they telegraphing that they would rather a different project and it doesn't need to be this specific one? Why? We need to ask that question. You're expecting your legislature to do whatever's possible in order to reduce the cost of gas and electricity, of energy. That's supposed to be their goal. Well, the pipeline, at least initially, may not reduce the cost of gas. It will reduce it once we have an export facility and gas is being exported. Until that point, we'll probably end up having higher cost gas. But in the long run, it will reduce the cost of gas, and it'll provide generations of gas for Alaskans. So there's no more of this, we're going to run out of South Central gas. Economic things that require stable sources of gas, like doing something with our oil instead of just exporting it, doing something with our minerals instead of exporting it, all of that takes energy. And with a consistent low-cost source, those things may be feasible and may be possible in the future. That's all potential economic growth that can happen with a gas pipeline. This project is as close as we've ever had. What I think Senator Giesel and Senator Wielechowski are demanding is to go back to the old model where the state owns and runs the project. I think it's very clear. The evidence is that project is not feasible. That model, let's say that there is no project. That model, that thinking that says the state of Alaska can manage a project and move it forward. We don't need Glenfarne. We'll let them go by the wayside. Thanks, but no thanks. And then the state of Alaska will take over again. That has there's zero evidence that that's actually going to be successful. Matter of fact, we've got more than a decade of it's not going to be successful. I'm going to check with your questions here. Yeah, from the beginning, I saw this comment come in, Craig. I hope you're pissed off. I'm mad. I'm frustrated beyond belief that this committee and these individuals who know nothing about building a pipeline are telegraphing to the world that they don't care about this particular project. Gary asks, why can't Glenfarne open it up so private Alaska citizens could invest into this pipeline, like shares of it and get a dividend? That way we bypass the state legislature. That is not out of the realm of possibility. We're not there yet. If you're talking 40 or $80 billion, whatever the cost of the project is, that's a lot of money that the Alaskans would have to pony up. But a fraction of it, even if it's a small fraction, and Alaskans have got the cash and the capital they want to invest in the project, I mean, it would speak volumes to people who are watching the project as to whether Alaskans would support the project or not if they open it up and it was flooded with Alaskans who want to put $100 or $1,000 or $100,000, whatever they've got, into investing in the project so that it could go forward. They're doing their part. That would speak volumes to the vision and the demand for it within Alaska. I cannot believe that Alaskans support the language that we just witnessed from Senator Giesel and Senator Wielechowski and the rest of the majority on the committee. I don't believe that Alaskans are looking at this and saying, oh yeah, we don't really believe Glenfarne. We'll take any other project, but we don't believe them. I don't believe that. I don't believe it. Christopher says there are companies where you can buy stock into that will probably serve the LNG project if they approve it. I suspect that there may be a way for Alaskans to invest in the project moving forward. We're not at that stage yet, but I think it's possible. Hey, cool. Michael Dukes is going to have Glenfarne on maybe Wednesday. That's going to be a good conversation. Don't want to miss that. It's either 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning. Craig. Yes, Democrats on the committee and Geisel is redundant. Yeah. Giesel is, I don't know what happened to her. Yeah, Tawny, it's very clear that the majority, and this is, I'm trying to say a technical thing. The members of the committee that make up the majority are all Democrats plus Giesel. The minority is Senator Rauscher and Senator Myers. That's the minority. 2 minority Republicans. The rest of them are Democrats plus Giesel. I don't know. You can call her a Republican because she calls herself a Republican, but it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that she's thinking like the other 2 Republicans on the committee. She's thinking like the Democrats on the committee. So, I mean, she's just a liar. She's like, I want to be known as a Republican, but I want to do Democrat things. Okay. Let's call yourself a man, you're still a woman. I mean, call yourself a Republican, you're still a Democrat. Anyway. Yeah, I don't think it was Ellen. So I don't think LNG is polarizing. Even if you are of the ilk that says we need to get away from fossil fuels, okay? Even if you're in that camp knows that they need natural gas. The transition that's happening, worldwide transition, requires natural gas. It requires it. They recognize that they cannot produce enough electricity through other means, through non-traditional means, through renewables, to meet the future growth in demand of energy. So natural gas, because it's cleaner, the developing world needs to have more natural gas. Okay, so we know that's not a polarizing figure. It is 100% Trump and his name in that bill or in the resolution that makes it polarizing. You know what? If you got to remove reference to Trump and the administration to get the bill, to get the resolution passed supporting this particular project, okay, fine. Fine. Remove the polarizing language, but recognize that the project you have before you is the one that the legislature is speaking about, not any and all other projects that could possibly come about in the future, like just with some pixie dust, because that's what it is. That's what you're saying is some future project we're going to ignore. We're like, we got a project here, but we really don't want it. And so we're going to put a bill for it or a resolution for it that says we want a Gasline project. Nobody notice, nobody look and see that we've actually got one, but we want something else. We don't want this. Yeah, Gary, that's 100% correct. Glenfarne has control, and that upsets the liberal left, the socialist left. They want to see the state of Alaska control it. They do not like private industry. And this is something that I have been trying to get people to understand. Our government, our legislature, the majority in the legislature does not care about private industry. It doesn't care. It doesn't care. Other than when oil sends a paycheck, right? A tax or royalty payment to the state. We don't care. The legislature does not care about private industry. Yes, we do need conservative voices in the Senate. It is a quandary in my mind where there are so many people in the state of Alaska who would vote for President Trump, and yet our legislature is left-leaning. It is something I do not understand. Maybe if I stop and think about it for a second and I say, well, the choice is really stark. Do you want Biden? Do you want Trump? Okay, we're going to go with Trump. But at the state level, you're looking at, well, do I want a leftist or do I want Giesel? Well, I can't vote for the Democrat, so I'm going to vote for Giesel. Okay, well, you didn't realize that they're one and the same, right? You didn't know. Do you want myself or do you want Bjorkman? Okay, well, Bjorkman's working with the Democrats. He didn't want to work with the conservative Republicans. He wanted to work with the Democrats. So you do the math. Like, you do the math. Same thing on the House side. You got Chuck Kopp. He says he's a Republican. He'd rather work with the Democrats. Louise Stutes, same thing. Would rather work with the Democrats. Voters are like, oh, she's got an R by her name. I'm going to elect her because she's a Republican. She believes what I believe. Okay. Must mean that we have a lot of people in the state who are Republicans that like to work with Democrats. I mean, that works only so far until the presidential election. And then you've got Trump and you've got Biden. And we can figure that out, but somehow we can't figure it out at the state level. It is one of those things that confounds the intelligence in the state. Brian has a guess. He says he thinks Giesel wants to be able to ensure that the legislature be able to dole out pieces of the construction. Well, that would be fitting into one of the three theories that I have, which is regarding the union representation. We don't have any, to the best of my understanding, there are currently no labor agreements between Glenfarne or any of the other companies that are on board with the project that are currently part of the project, the labor agreement. So that could be part of the issue, is that the legislature wants to see, and remember, the special interests heavily include labor in our state government. So that could be what the left is pushing at Senate Resources, is to behind the scenes say, hey, look, you gotta sweeten this deal. You gotta take care of our people, or we're not going to agree to this project, right? This CS could be undone. They could just come into the next meeting and say, oh, we found our agreements. We've got our labor agreements in place, and we're going to not take this version of the bill up. We're going to take the original version up. Or they just amend the language. It's totally doable. They can fix it before it leaves committee. They can fix it next committee meeting. It's easy to do. Could be. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that seriously thinks that the legislature itself is going to be able to manage a project of any size, let alone a mega project like this. Like, nobody thinks that's a good idea. You don't, the people who are in charge don't have any experience in managing big projects like that. I mean, for heaven's sakes, look how hard it is to just pass a budget every year. And that's not even complicated when when you're talking about building a pipeline. I mean, I think there's like 1% chance that people would think that the state could manage this and do a better job than what Glenfarne could do. It's just no way. There's industries, all of the people that testified, the Support Alliance, Industry Support Alliance, and Associated General Contractors, I'm very confident that none of them would agree that the state should manage this project. Like, we're going to be a partner with the legislature. I mean, look at it this way. The legislature said, we want oil development in this state. We want to incentivize it. And so we're going to put tax credits towards new development. Yay. We're going to be a great partner. Okay. Worked for a couple of years, and then we refused to pay the tax credits. And the private industry is like, hey, didn't we have a deal here? Like, regardless of which side you come down on whether the tax credits policy is good policy or bad policy, you have an agreement. And the state legislature is like, yeah, we're just not going to pay that this year. That's the business partner that private industry is going to look at and say, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. We'll go invest our capital somewhere else. You, legislature, very high risk partner. Matter of fact, we don't even have to think twice. We're not going to get into business with you. Yeah, I mean, when I say a decade, Brian, I know that people have been wanting a natural gas pipeline for, probably ever since before there was a TAPS, right? So I remember the conversation. I remember since then people were saying, hey, well, we should have built a gas pipeline at the same time we put the TAPS in, right? This project, this effort started with the creation of statute that put AGDC in place, Alaska Gasline Development Corporation. And that is sometime around 2012, 2013. That's why I'm referring to a decade or a little over a decade. Ultimately, Tony, you're exactly right. That committee is demonstrating that they are more interested in special interests or whatever it is that's motivating them to want to scuttle this project, this particular project, why they want a project but not this project. Okay. That's the same thing. We want a project but not this project. That's the same thing as saying you don't want this project. Okay. It's the same thing. And you can't get the other project. You can't get it the way that you want it. Nobody wants, in private industry, nobody wants to do that with you. So you must not care about Alaskans, because if you really cared about Alaskans, you would do whatever, you'd bend over backwards to get a project like this going forward, even if it's like against your political goals of socialism. I don't know. Maybe I'm stretching there. Socialists think that they care about the people, but ultimately they don't. They just create dependency. This is what I'm afraid of, Rick, is that the state of Alaska screws this up. Not the state of Alaska. Not the state of Alaska. If anybody's going to screw this up, it's going to be the legislature. And it's not the entire legislature. It is the majority. And maybe not even the entire majority. Maybe it's a small minority. It's Senator Giesel and Senator Wielkowski and the Democrats on resources. Maybe they're supported by the ones that are in finance, because I'm sure, well, I don't know. Where's this bill going next? Let me look and see real quick. Back out. Oops, I got to go over here. So it's a House resolution and it's in the Senate. It just goes to resources and then to the floor. So that's it. This can get scuttled. This can, well, I mean, honestly, the resolution doesn't prevent the project from going forward, right? It's just communicating what the legislature thinks is important, and it would communicate that this project's not important. Okay, that would be what this project or what this resolution does. The bills that address the tax regime, our tax policies, that's what has material impact to the project. You're basically rolling the dice. If you're saying, we don't want to play ball with Glenfarne, we're not going to alleviate or redo our tax structure. We're not going to do that. We don't believe you. We think you're going to pay the taxes and build the project anyway. You'll just take less profit. Whatever your excuse is, and you just don't do what the governor and AGDC and Glenfarne are saying is necessary for the project to move forward. If you're not going to do that, then you're basically, rolling the dice in Vegas. That's it. You're just gambling. Because nobody in the legislature right here, they don't have the subject matter expertise to know how to put a project together. That's what former Senator Begich was telling the Democrats on the committee earlier. He's like, hey, look, we need to be able to consider this. We need to take action on this and make this project financially feasible. Senator Mark Begich knows a thing or two about business. The members on this committee know nothing about business. They certainly know nothing about building a pipeline, a big project like this. And yet they're the ones calling the shots right now. I go back to the whole purpose of this effort that I am putting forward with oversight. I've showed you the bill. I've showed you the red line version. I've showed you the meeting where they are very smugly and with as few words as possible. They're not getting specific about what they're doing. They're putting as few words as possible and painting as good a picture on themselves as possible when they put their committee substitute forward. We're just making some updates. No need to think very hard about this. It's just, updates that we're doing. See my smile? You can trust me. We're just doing updates. Okay. You've seen it. That's the truth of the matter. And now it's up to you to provide the oversight. And I'm suggesting that what you've got to do is get a hold of Senator Giesel, get a hold of Senator Wielkowski, and ask them the question: why are you trying to scuttle this project? Oh, I'm not trying to scuttle. I want the fair shake. Okay. Well, then does changing the resolution, the wording in the resolution that eliminates reference to the current project in favor of some future project, does that help move the project forward, or does it hurt it? Does not taking action on a tax bill help or hurt the project? And then make your opinion known. Tell them how important the project is to you, that this particular project goes forward. If enough Alaskans pause their daily activities and say, hey, I'm gonna drop an email or I'm gonna make a phone call, and flood the staff with phone calls for these individuals, then maybe they will get the point. I can tell you that if the incentive or the ulterior motive, their incentive for doing what they're doing, is the special interest that has got their ear, that's what you're competing against. You just don't see it. Is it a union issue? Is it Chugach Electric and not Glenfarne and NSTAR pushing forward? They don't believe that the pipeline is ever going to be built. I mean, there are people out there that are like, yeah, we're never going to have a pipeline. This is all just a pipe dream. We're never going to have it. So let's stop talking about it. Let's not put any energy towards it. Let's not address taxes. We just don't believe that it can be done, right? They're naysayers. Not going to happen. Those people, maybe their ulterior motive is let's put our effort towards this importing LNG. Okay. Well, people stand to benefit from that. If you're in the LNG import business, that's going to be great for you. That's your special interest that's maybe working behind the scenes here. Them or the unions. I'm open to suggestions. If it's a fourth option and Giesel and Wilkowski just know better, and they know that this pipeline's never going to be built, and Glenfarne's just out to fleece Alaska, then let's ask for some proof. Ask for the proof. Why? What is it? What is possibly what legitimate reason could they have for the actions that they're taking if it's not to scuttle this project? I'll tell you, there have got to be more people asking this question than just little old me. I'm not going to be enough. Like, I'm one voice. I can be ignored, and whatever's happening is going to happen. But if you want to make a difference, then there's got to be a lot of people who stand to lose if we don't have a pipeline, and that's all of Alaskans, because you're going to pay high cost energy with imported LNG into the future with no alternative. Maybe somebody spends money and goes and gets natural gas locally, and now there's a competition between the price of LNG, imported LNG, and local gas. So maybe there's some downwards pressure. Maybe companies decide there's no sense in competing in high cost natural gas and Cook Inlet if the state has made a decision to go to importing LNG. I mean, of all the things that a resource-rich state like Alaska can do, is like, this is a failure on epic proportions. We cannot manage ourselves. We cannot manage our economy. We cannot manage our money. We can't manage our future. And we've screwed ourselves. So now we have to import LNG from somewhere else. Lots of gas around. We can't manage it. So we're gonna go to somebody else that can manage it. Just bring it over here because we suck. We can't figure it out. There's arguments out there, and I hear it on the periphery that says, hey, Alaska's this failed petro state. We can't get a pipeline built. There's legitimacy to that argument. Like, we've got a private entity here that is saying they're putting their money forward and saying they have a vision for how they can get this thing done. And we got members of our legislature that don't believe them or have ulterior motives and are actively working against them. That's what this resolution that we looked at tonight is. This is actively working against Glenfarne and this project. All the press ought to be asking why. Why did you remove reference to this particular project? What is it about this particular project that you don't like? Legitimate question. Anyway. I didn't set out to ruin your evening, Rick, but hopefully I've been successful at lighting a fire, and it caused you to call Giesel's office and ask some questions. Tell her you want to see this Glenfarne project move forward. Yeah, I think that the minority is, they're always challenged. The minority didn't know that there was a CS, likely did not know there was a CS to that bill, to that resolution, until they showed up and sat down at their committee desk. and then it's sitting there waiting for them. They likely didn't know. But that's up to the minority to fight, to speak against it. I mean, they don't have the votes. They can't control the calendar. They can't control the priorities of the committee. But they can speak against it. Christopher, you said that the bill mentioned propane. They didn't remove it as they did LNG. I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'm just looking at the red line version real quick to see what there's the there's the bill or the resolution, and I don't know. Oh, I don't want it on that page. I thought I'd be slick and do a search here to find propane so I know what you're talking about. No. Okay, there we go. Now I know what you're talking about. Okay, so part of the addition is support of a state natural gas pipeline with a spur line to Fairbanks and related infrastructure to produce and transport propane to communities along the Yukon River for use in heating and cooking, and to export liquefied natural gas around. Okay. Well, I'm not a pipeline guy, and I'll admit that. My understanding is that this is an LNG, liquid natural gas, which is not propane. And I don't know why transporting propane along the Yukon River would have anything to do with a natural gas pipeline with a spur to Fairbanks. I don't have an answer for that. That would be a good answer. That'd be a good question for Giesel's office. One of her staff members would be able to answer that question, I'm sure. Maybe it is a copy and paste error. This is taken out of some other piece of legislation and they forgot to change propane to LNG. I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm missing, but transporting propane or LNG to communities along the Yukon River I don't remember ever hearing that as part of the the AKLNG project scope. So I don't understand what that is, unless that's somebody in one of these communities throwing this in here just as a wing and a prayer, saying, "Hey, don't forget about us. We want propane along the Yukon." I don't know. That's kind of strange. Tawny, you think it's petty, and it could be seen as petty, or it could be seen as strategic. It loses its pettiness when you identify who stands to benefit from this, and then it's not petty. It is business. This is political business. We don't want the state to go in this direction. We don't want Glenfarne to be successful because this other interest over here stands to gain if they fail, and that's what we want. So we're going to do business. It's not personal. It's business. We're going to do whatever's necessary to scuttle the project. That way, those who are going to benefit when that happens. So it could be petty. The narrative in committee that says we're adopting this CS because it had language that was, I don't know, triggering. Triggering is not the right word, but it was whatever the word they used. That was petty. That was petty. But I don't think that the actions that they're taking here are petty. I think they're strategic. I think there's something else going on here that has not been revealed. Rick, I think I'm doing a pretty good job. I know that there's probably going to be some clips of of me with my mouth wide open because I have been speaking boldly here. I've been trying to keep my cool on this. I really do want the pipeline project to succeed. I want Alaska to have as low a cost and as much natural gas as they can use going forward into the future. When I die and my kids are kids as kids are adults and moving on with their life, building their families, they've got access to natural gas and jobs because business likes low cost energy. I want that desperately for Alaska. It requires something that is missing in the legislature, and that's a vision for something possible in the private sector. We are absent that. The only way you get it is for business-minded people to take a stint in the legislature to serve. It's the only way you're going to get it. You can't expect people without that experience to just wake up one morning and think, "Oh, I see the error of my way. Now I'm going to promote private sector economy." Nope. The only way you're going to get it is if you have people move to Juneau, volunteer, get elected, and go make some change. That's the only way this is going to change here. So I don't know how many of those people exist in Alaska anymore that are willing to say no to. Frankly, the legislature meets from January to May, and that's a lot of times when people who have some sort of business during the summertime are snowbirds and out of here, right? They're in Arizona or California or Texas, or they're somewhere else. Those semi-retired people. We need those folks. Like, you retire from business and you still got a brain and you're still breathing and you can still put sentences together. We need you in the legislature. We need you to be a quality administrator, commissioner for one of our departments. I mean, this doesn't get better without participation with quality people. Anyway, I feel like a broken record sometimes. Yeah, either, Brian. I don't see the tribes as being disadvantaged with a pipeline or advantaged with a import. I'd have to think through that. Yeah, Trump's definitely got the energy flowing, and that's why people show up. I mean, you look at the numbers of people who voted for Trump and compare just raw voter numbers to other, like the Begich race, right? And there's more people that voted for Trump, even though they had Begich on the ballot. They didn't vote for Begich, or the alternative. What was it, Peltola? They didn't vote for Peltola either. The total number of votes cast for the presidential race is greater than the total number of votes for other races. So people just showed up to vote for the president. That's it. That happens. Yeah. Well, even if people pay attention, what are they hearing? They're hearing social media. They're hearing a liberal news, one or two conservative news outlets. So, I mean, what you are hearing may not be helpful. So here's, again, this is why why I started this effort here, is to give you my perspective. It's an educated opinion. I served in the legislature. I've got some experience here that's, I think, relevant. And it's not just my opinion, because I show you the data, like the raw truth. You're not going to get that in the news media. You're going to get just opinion, sound bites that fit somebody's narrative. Yeah. Who has what financial gain from all the angles? I really would like people, I would like somebody that's smarter than I am to start digging into this and figure out who stands to gain. Who stands to gain from this project not going forward? And then how are they influencing this situation right now? I mean, it's really important. Yeah, you're listing out there's a whole list of things where the state of Alaska has gotten involved in things and they've didn't pan out. I will say the Delta Barley project, it's interesting. We look and see what's happening in other states, and we say, well, we should do that here. But with regard to agriculture, we can't do. I mean, we've got less in common with Kansas than Mars, right? I mean, half the year, it doesn't matter that we're warmer than Mars. Plants don't grow in Mars; they don't grow here. Like, we have to think through agriculture a little differently. You're gonna need to plant seeds, and you're gonna need to plant. Apply fertilizer. Well, the costs for fertilizer is so much higher here than it is elsewhere in the nation. I mean, the inputs for energy, you need to move water, you got to pump it. The cost of electricity is a whole lot more expensive here than it is elsewhere. If we're going to do agriculture, we've got to start with something that's sustainable and scalable as success happens, as the business inputs get reduced or you address them, right? So if in this next decade we can reduce the cost of electricity, then it makes it easier for small projects to turn into big projects in agriculture, okay? As an example. Taking the tack that says the state is going to be able to do agriculture for Alaska is no different than the state being able to do a pipeline for Alaska. It's not going to happen. Private industry has got to do both. Yeah. I think that's what this resolution says. If you read between the lines, what it says is we want a project that is run by the state. We want what we thought we had before AGDC and Frank Richards gave Glenn Farn the project. Never mind that we don't have the money to make the project happen. We technically still have 25% ownership of the project. And if we're going to exercise that ownership, we're going to have to cough up billions with a B of dollars to exercise that ownership. Where is the legislature going to get that money? It's not coming out of the permanent fund. That's the largest source of revenue, or largest source of money that could theoretically be used. I mean, we can't take the money out of the permanent fund, but could the legislature pass a law that tells the Permanent Fund Corporation to invest in this project? Certainly they could. Could you take the money out of all of the accounts that we have money squirreled away in? Yeah. But I think the total, I mean, you're going to be hard pressed to find $10 billion to throw at this project. And that would just be cleaning out all of our accounts. So the point is the legislature doesn't have the money. As a theoretically socialist state owner of a project, which is what I think they're one of the motivations here is we don't have the money to make that happen. It's nonsense to think that that's actually feasible. Okay. It's nonsense. Now, Gary, you're going to get me spun up. We are, our founding document does lend us to have socialist tendencies. 100% it does. This whole concept of Alaska collective ownership of natural resources is what I was trying to say. That's a socialist concept, that we, the people, own the resources. Okay. Let's just be clear. It's a socialist concept. Other states, private owners own the resources. You own the land, you own the resources, with some exceptions. But most of the time, you've got the mineral rights and you own the resources on that land. You're a private owner. You do what you want on your land. We've got the socialist concept that says we, the people in Alaska, own our natural resources. Okay. Well, we, the people, as you're expressing your ownership, do you want that ownership expressed only through your government? Meaning now we've got a permanent fund set up that's giving money out to state government to run the government, and it's that corporation's giving money out to permanent fund dividends if the legislature would pay it, right? And those are two ways that the owners of the resource exercise their rights of ownership. We take our earnings from our investments and we fund our government with it, and we pay ourselves dividends. If the government wants to grow, it grows the investments. It grows the oil development. It doesn't need to grow the private economy, the non-oil economy, because that has no connection to the legislative spend. So it doesn't care about that. But now you've got a competition between the permanent fund earnings being spent on dividends and permanent fund earnings being spent on state government. And there's too many people in Alaska that say, you know what? I don't want taxes. So just use the permanent fund earnings that aren't being spent on government, but are going to dividends. Just use those to pay for government. So the way that we will express our ownership of our natural resources is through our government. Remember, only a portion, 25% of our royalties go into the permanent fund. The other 75% of the royalties go to the general fund and are spent every year. So collective ownership of our natural resources means, for the future here, if we go the path that we're going right now, collective ownership of our natural resources means you get to express that ownership. Your benefit is only by government programs, government services, what government can do for you, what your elected leader, what your elected representative will promise you, and earmark money towards whatever project you want to have funded. That's more socialism for our state. The private benefit of our socialist ownership of our natural resources is that permanent fund dividend. It is a portion of that collective ownership that comes to us individually, and we express our ownership our constitutional ownership through that private exchange of money, because that dividend of our investment earnings comes to us. Well, if we're not willing to participate and say we want downwards pressure on the size of government, we don't want more government spending, and we don't want to pay a tax, then that's the only thing that we got going forward, is to give up the dividend and allow the permanent fund earnings to just fund government going forward. And as long as permanent fund continues to grow, we'll have bigger government. You'll have more money every year to spend on government. And you still won't have a government that cares about your private economy because there's no connection to it like we have now. There's no connection to it. Here's the crazy secret. Our state government doesn't need a natural gas pipeline. If you're focused on government and what's best for government is to keep a high tax rate on any potential pipeline so that you get more money. And if the pipeline goes, great, we got more money for tax revenue. If the pipeline doesn't go, it's no skin off our back. The government doesn't care. It's still going to pay. It's going to pay its bills, whether the cost of electricity is high or low. It's still going to pay it. It's going to take it out of the dividend, or it'll eventually get a tax and pay the higher cost of energy. It's going to be paid. Those that care about growing the public economy, they don't care whether you get a pipeline or not. It doesn't matter to government. Government just continues to fund itself. It'll tax you or it'll take your dividend. Just so crazy that that if you're paying attention, on day one, Senate Finance told us that they had $200 million more this year in permanent fund earnings than we did last year. That's $200 million more that we get to spend on government. So that's what you're going to have. You're going to have bigger government. And do you need a pipeline to have bigger government? Yeah. Our legislature can crush this pipeline, and it doesn't matter to the legislature. Legislature's got low-cost electricity in the form of a alpine hydroelectric project in Juneau. They don't need natural gas. That may be true. I was surprised that Senator Rauscher was not carrying it, but maybe that has something to do with the relationships in the Senate. I don't know. Yeah, Brian, understood. The state's not going to manage this project or any major mega project successfully. This, Craig, is a really good question. Why is Governor Dunleavy not addressing the Alaska public on this? I wish I could tell you. I think he would say that he is. I saw one social media post of him shooting a video explaining why this, not this bill that we looked at tonight, but the tax rewrite bill, giving the volumetric tax instead of the property tax regime, putting that in place. He was explaining on that video why it's necessary. And if I know the governor, and I've watched him over the 6 years that I was in the legislature, at the same time he was serving, that's kind of his MO is, I'll say it once and that's going to be good enough. And then I'll move on to something else. And I don't know. I think that we're, given that the governor's only got, the rest of this year as governor, the legislature and others are inclined to not listen too much to him. That's the whole concept of being a lame duck. And you've kind of lost your momentum and you've lost your moral authority to lead because you haven't been doing it. So I don't know. Or should I say you haven't been doing it effectively? Because I know that there's plenty of people that are frustrated with the governor on this and other issues. So why is he not addressing the public effectively? I don't know. It's not his leadership style, is I guess best I could say. Executive order, session closed, over, done, go home before they screw anything up. Yeah. I would guess that if the bill to address the property tax doesn't get taken care of by the legislature, that the governor would be highly incentivized to call a special session on that particular bill, which would just piss all the legislators off, especially in an election year. Can't do your campaign fundraising during a special session. So he would be incentivized to call a special session to deal with that. Bearers above, thanks for joining us. I don't think I've seen your name on here before. Appreciate you joining us. For the peninsula, assuming that's the Kenai Peninsula, the borough has had a difficult time navigating this LNG project over several mayors. Yeah, I think that the difficulty within the project, from my perspective and from my experience listening to a couple mayors and the project itself, it really is. There's not been a whole lot of coordination or things that the borough has had to work on until recently, when the project's actually starting to take off and move forward. Now there's a property tax conversation, and I think Glenfarne is fully capable of negotiating with the local borough, just like they're every single borough along the way. And that's the way that I think it should be. I don't agree that the state needs to preempt and take away the rights of the local municipalities to do what they need to do. Now, that being said, local municipalities have got to understand that if they're not going to play ball and they're going to be standing in the way, right? And this is where all of this coordination and communication goes on. And I think that's probably one of the things that has suffered the most under this current administration, is the communication between the boroughs and the state. If the boroughs think they're going to get rich off this pipeline, that is also not fair to the rest of Alaskans who don't live in those boroughs, right? Likewise, it's not fair to say that the property tax potential of the local boroughs that are going to have the project or the pipeline in it, that those property taxpayers, have to pick up the cost of the associated project in whatever form that those costs might show up in. That's not fair either. So there needs to be something worked out here where, and I think it's possible. I think that Glenfarne is capable of negotiating in far greater capacity than our state is able to negotiate. So boroughs and Glenfarne should be able to figure this out. If the state would just focus on the state's portion of this, I think that would be good. And I am in favor of moving to a volumetric tax. I think that is the right thing to do. I think it's the right thing to do. But this concept with Senate resources and trying to make it difficult for Glenfarne to move forward has the potential to alter or stop the project, and that cannot be allowed either. That is, I don't know how you stop it other than the public getting upset and expressing their interest to the legislature. Do not screw this up. That should be the mantra of the people to the legislature. Do not screw this up. I don't know what you're going to do if they do. Like, we're going to not re-elect you. Okay. 6 months later. What are you promising me? Tawny's got an interesting incentive here. How about we penalize each legislator that votes for this a percentage of their paycheck for enacting obviously outrageous committee substitute? Yeah. I mean, it would be nice if we had that ability to reach out and yank a chain. It's not how our system works, though, right? But that's why we have elections every 2 years. So House members you can replace every 2 years, and half the Senate you can replace every 2 years. That's the best we can do. Yeah, Lynn, this is it. I would really like to have somebody that's better at investigating and connecting the dots than I am. Dig into this and figure out who is behind this. Who stands to gain if the pipeline project goes away? Left-leaning legislators don't really care about their constituents. They care about them in November every 2 years or on election time. They care about them then. And they care in a different way. They care because their heart is bleeding and they want to wrap their hands around them, wrap their arms around them, and help them and make things better with government. And that's how they care for them, which is not really caring for them because it's just creating dependency, right? I mean, there's an argument to be made that a social net or a safety net when people are down and out and in between jobs or whatever, right? That they're hardworking people and is just a downturn in the economy and they need some assistance until they can get back on their feet, right? I think we would all probably agree that some of that is what we would expect. At least that's what you're going to find in the legislature. But that's not what the left is. The left is saying, hey, we're able to take care of you. We've got all of these government services to make your life easier. That is just creating dependency, and that isn't really caring about people. So I agree with you. They don't really care about their constituents. I think it's possible, Rick. I don't know how many legislators are in NSTAR's pockets, but I think it's very possible that NSTAR is pressured by their parent company to do whatever's possible to see that the pipeline doesn't go forward, because their parent company stands to win if we are importing LNG from Canada. So I think it is possible. How many times have we had local politicians tell us they don't get enough emails to save the locals a few bucks worth of taxes? Yeah. Emails are great, but they're easy to ignore. Phone calls to the office that keep the staff on the phone, and they've got a little tally how many for and against a particular bill, and people keep calling. I think that's probably more effective than sending the emails. Emails are easy to ignore. Important, but easier to ignore. And ultimately, developing a relationship with your legislator is what really matters. And I know that's hard to do, and it's easy to say. You think about this, though. Each one of our House districts represents roughly 18,000 people, if memory serves me correctly. How many people does a California House member represent? Anybody know? I did the math once. I asked this question once and figured it out. I'm gonna see if I can get an answer here quickly. $500,000 people per district. Let's see, did anybody get that answer right? No, you didn't get it yet. So I got, 500,000 people. AI is great. Take it with a grain of salt. Maybe it's wrong. It's not wrong. It's somewhere in that range. The difference, right? The ability of an Alaska resident to know their state house member is 1 in 18,000. The ability in California is 1 in 500,000, which is to say that you probably are never going to have a relationship with your house member, right? Would be very difficult. We're blessed in the state of Alaska with this low population and our ability to know and interact with our state representatives. It is one of the blessings that we have here in Alaska. That's an interesting concept, Lynn, that the government doesn't need us. We're just useful numbers. They need us to vote, so that we're useful in that sense for numbers, but they don't need us for finances. Matter of fact, if there's more of us that show up in the state, that actually is a burden on the state government. You're gonna have more state services required if you have a larger population, and the population's not helping pay for that. So there's actually the reverse incentive, Lynn. Not only do they not really need us, it's a perverse incentive to not have the population grow. If the population grows, somebody somewhere else is going to have to get taxed. Oil's going to have to get taxed. Your permanent fund dividend's going to have to get taxed. Somebody else has to pay for that additional services that are required for a larger population. It's a perverse incentive in Alaska. It's crazy. Gary is asking a personal question. When was I with the 1st Infantry Division and what units? So I never was with the first ID in Germany. I was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas. And I was with 134 Armor, which was one of the last straight armor battalions in the Army. Most of the armor and infantry battalions have went to a combined arms battalion, where there is a combination in the heavy world. There's a combination of infantry, which are Bradleys, and tanks in a combined arms company, combined arms battalion. So you've got in a armor heavy battalion, it would be 2 companies of tanks and 1 company of Bradleys and infantry that go with it. 134 Armor no longer exists. They got rolled up, disbanded. They were one of the last of the true tank battalions that didn't have a combined arms nature. Then another deployment or another assignment, I was in Fort Bliss, Texas with 1st AD, 1st Armored Division. And then I was a company commander for a combined arms battalion. Company commander in a combined arms battalion. So I had tank platoons and theoretically a Bradley platoon if we had it deployed in that sense, but we never did. We deployed on wheels, Humvees and MRAPs, mine resistant vehicles. Thanks for the question. And that is to say that my wife and kids spent more time in Kansas at Fort Riley than I did. My time was out and about with with the 1st AD deployed. Okay. Yeah, Lynn, I can give people the benefit of the doubt to say that there is somebody that thinks that what they're doing is for the good of all Alaskans. And I would think that that's probably the case. But it is sad that someone thinks that this project either doesn't have a chance or is worse than an alternative that they have in their mind. But it is clear that something is at play here with regard to what the Senate Resources Committee is doing that is not straightforward. I mean, they used deliberate language to hide that they were removing their support from this particular project in favor of some other project. They didn't want to talk about that. They don't want to explain themselves. They just wanted it to move forward that way. So it's deliberate. There's obviously some ulterior motive here that it's not clear what it is. Rick, why not? Call the White House. Good idea, Rick. If President Trump really wants this project to go forward, and it's one of his priorities, and we've got some local yokels that are standing in the way, then maybe President Trump ought to know about it. You would hope that your federal delegation would be communicating, but that isn't necessarily always the case. Either they don't know or they don't want to rock the boat. They want to ruin relationships. So yeah, if you're so inclined, call the White House switchboard and let President Trump know. I don't know. I can't see that it could hurt any. I don't know. Maybe it his response would solidify their opposition, like it could get any stronger. I don't know. What I'd really like to know is why. I think a lot could be explained, and it would be harder for opposition for the project to go forward if there was just transparency. If we could understand what the motives are for people who are opposing the project. If it is, and I said this earlier, if it is philosophical and it is 100% about, well, Glenfarne, you've got to show us your books before we're going to agree to reduce taxes. Okay. Well, then that doesn't work in the private sector. You're thinking of things in terms of public sector transparency to something that is very clearly and dearly held in the private sector. And it's not an anomaly in Alaska. It's what is going to be required in every jurisdiction. Private industry, through business arrangements, is not going to be fully transparent. And that's what the state of Alaska has asked to develop a pipeline. So we're going to have to be okay with some of that. The alternative, if that's unpalatable to you, the alternative is to say, well, we'll just do a state managed run program, and then everything will be up. There'll be no confidentiality agreements. Okay. Well, if that's what you think philosophically is what's necessary or what would be successful at building a pipeline, then I will give you the last decade of that being attempted, and no private industry had any takers. They're like, we're not going to do that. Okay. So if you're in that category of people that says that's the right thing to do, and Giesel and Wielkowski, they need to stand their ground. We need to know what Glenfarne's doing. We need to see their books. Okay. Well, then you don't want a pipeline. You don't want this pipeline. You may want a theoretical pipeline that where all of your business dealings are not hidden behind confidentiality agreements. You might want that, but that's not what's going to get a pipeline built. Private industry, not unless you're going to fund it yourself. You could do that. You build a pipeline. The state trying to manage it, it's going to cost more. because government doing anything is going to cost more. It's just a principle. It's like law of thermodynamics. It's like the law of government management. It just means it's going to cost more, probably twice as much more. So let's say we've got an extra $80 to $100 billion laying around. We could just have the state build the pipeline, manage it and build it. Doesn't really matter how much it costs. The state's paying for it. So let's just get it built. We wouldn't need Glenfarne. We wouldn't need anybody else. We just do it. Does that sound feasible to anybody else? It's a pipe. That would be a pipe dream. Like, that's never going to happen. The state of Alaska does not have the money to build the pipeline. Other people are not going to loan the state of Alaska money for the state of Alaska to build the pipeline. So we're done. End of conversation. That's not going to be successful at building a pipeline. We have a private company that has lined up private interests that will give it money if all of the conditions are correct, if it's feasible, right? That's why we don't have a final investment decision yet. If we can line up all the things and we can make it work, then we've got people that are going to invest in the pipeline. Legislature's got a part to play. If it refuses to play ball and it thinks it can do better on its own, well, then it's going to have to cough up the money, and we don't have the money. So this is, call the White House. That may be our only option here. Hey, President Trump, we need some money and we need some pressure on some legislators. I don't know what else. I don't know what else would. I would like to think that public engagement would carry the day. I would like to think that. I might be a little naive in saying that, but I would like to think that that would carry the day. It at least needs to be tried because that's what we're supposed to do. It's all about smoke and mirrors. The politicians only speak words that gain voter support. That, especially in an election year, is a true statement. So I guess I should add a fourth thing to this Senator Giesel, Senator Wielechowski debacle in Senate Resources, and that is they're pandering to their base for election year. That could also be an explanation for why they're doing what they're doing. Rick says they don't recall or they misspoke. Wrong wording. The bill cannot move forward. You're good, Ben. Yeah. There's a temptation to look at what's happening over in Iran and the Middle East oil and natural gas shutdown that we have, and draw conclusions that somehow this impacts the pipeline, and maybe in small amounts it does. I mean, it helps with the Asian countries who if they didn't understand before, or they didn't have an excuse before, now they definitely have an excuse, and it's in their face that, hey, where we're getting our stuff is not super reliable. Now we need something from Alaska, right? In that sense. But from the financial side, investments are being made based on long-term demand for LNG, for natural gas. And that's where the money piece, the money handlers, they're not looking at what's happening in Iran. Not unless it's impacting the long-term projections for natural gas. Your $40 to $80 billion that's necessary to build a pipeline is looking at the long-term picture of whether they're going to get their money back over the long term. They know that things are going to happen. Prices are going to fluctuate. Wars are going to happen. Dictators get deposed. Dictators rise. There's always things like that happen that impact prices on the short term. But is demand going to continue in the long term? And is it a good bet that we're going to need LNG going forward for the long term? That's where the big money's coming from. That's what they're looking at. Not so much the short-term turmoil that's happening in Iran. Question everything the Juneau Clown Posse does. That's a really safe perspective to have. There's another way of saying it is trust but verify. I have a hard time, having been down there, of even trusting in the first place. I would just say verify first before you trust. That's what I would say. Brian, yeah, you're right. Going back up your comment, importation of LNG and building a pipeline are not mutually exclusive. I understand that. Pipeline's going to take time to get built. So does an import facility. An import facility could be built as an import/export facility, so it could serve dual purpose, right? So you are going to be able to import LNG before you have a pipeline built. I get that, and I understand that may be where we're at. It frustrates me beyond belief that we've allowed ourselves to get into a position where the natural gas that we suspect to be out in Cook Inlet is something that is so expensive to go for that we've just thrown up our hands and we're not going to go after it. Now, that's not completely accurate. I know that Hillcorp is going to be doing some drilling, and Hex Fury has been doing drilling successfully. And Hillcorp has plans to do more wells this year. So I think that the state policy for a long time has just been, we want low cost energy, we want low cost gas, and so we as consumers are not willing to pay more, and that had a negative impact on entities that would go out and speculate and go get the gas. It's safe to say that if Alaskans were willing to pay whatever it takes to get gas out of the ground, well, somebody would go get the gas because they know they'd be able to sell it. But our government that we established has created the regulatory commission, regulatory RCA, Regulatory Commission of Alaska, and that has a downwards pressure on what industry can charge consumers for the natural resource. And I think that our focus on getting low-cost gas over several decades has resulted, the consequence of that has resulted in producers drying up and not producing new wells. They just couldn't sell the gas. They couldn't make a financial investment that they felt was a good investment and they'd get a return on it. So they went somewhere else. Anyway, likely we have to import LNG unless they can find gas. I mean, they can go out and drill some wells and have gas flowing within 12 months. I mean, that is a possibility. We could stave off our impending gas shortage. But again, the local producers have got to know that they can sell the gas that they produce. If you're just going to import, you're literally telling local producers, don't go drill wells because we're going to get gas from somewhere else and you won't be able to sell yours. There's that, right? But here's the other thing. What's the price that importation of LNG is at? Okay. We know it's going to be expensive and we're going to have sticker shock when it happens. Okay. Can producers in Cook Inlet produce gas and be profitable? Can they provide gas at a rate lower than what it costs to import it? I don't know the answer to that. But if the alternative that the state thinks it has to do is import gas, and then Hillcorp can go out and drill some oil wells and produce gas that costs less than importing it, then whatever that import number is the ceiling to what local natural gas is going to be able to charge, just under it, right? So then the question becomes, who has the long-term contract? And this is what's really going to frustrate me, is if electric utilities lock in long-term contracts with imported LNG. Then Hillcorp doesn't have any place to sell its gas because you've got imported LNG on long-term contracts for your only buyers or most of your buyers. So I would hope that local utilities, if they're going to enter into contracts with imported LNG, it be on short-term contracts that would allow the utilities to take advantage if Hillcorp or some other company is able to produce local gas at a cost to the ratepayer, to the consumer, to utilities or Instar, costs them less than what it does to import it, that we would be able to do that. I hope that's what's happening. So yes, a pipeline and importation are not mutually exclusive. They just are tied together. Gary, got it. 1-4 calf. I was never in a CAV unit. Interesting. BSA needs some level of control. Step increases or COLA. Just make the insane funding stop. We don't have time to get into this. We could do an entire show on this. Whose idea was it to come up with a BSA, base student allocation, a formula to decide how much the state is going to fund local school board or local school districts? Do you think that was the legislature's idea, or do you think that was a school district or education lobby idea? I don't know the answer to the question. I'm literally curious, want to learn, and know. I suspect the education institution said we're tired of the legislature fighting every year over how much school funding is going to be. So let's put a formula in place, get the legislature to agree to a funding formula. That way we can predict what level of funding we're going to receive from the legislature. I think that's probably the way it was done, because that just makes sense the way we operate in this state. Okay. So you've got a formula, a BSA formula, base student allocation formula, that is funding education pretty much the way the education lobby wanted it to. Okay. I think that it's very clear that the legislature needs to address the BSA, but the formula is working exactly how it was drafted. Some school districts are hurting more than others with regard to students leaving the school district. There's been an outward migration of people out of Anchorage. There's been some outward migration in other jurisdictions, in other local school districts, but there's also been parents that are fed up with the school system and are moving to alternative schooling choices. And that drop in average daily membership, ADM, drop in student count, butts and seats, means the state formula that's based on ADM, butts and seats, is giving the local districts less money. The formula is working. In many respects, the school districts are not competing. They are being outcompeted. Or in other words, parents are walking away from the school district because they don't like the product that's coming from the school district. So it is wrong of the local school district and local parents to look to the state and say, well, you got to adjust the formula. You got to give us more money. The formula doesn't work for us anymore. That's literally saying, I don't care why parents are leaving. I don't care why our system's broken. I don't care why we have a brand that isn't selling. You got to still give us money. We want to keep doing what we're doing. You just got to give us more money. It is the height of arrogance that our school systems, our school districts are not solving the problem of why parents are leaving the schooling system. It is the height of arrogance. And you know what the legislature wants to do now because of the education lobby? They want to just eliminate the ability of parents to go outside of the district. Force them to come to us. Force the parent to come to the education system that they are choosing not to participate in because we don't want to have to compete. It is the height of arrogance. I want local school districts to be top of the nation. I want our schooling system to care about parents and care about students and for parents to want to participate in our local school system. That's what I want. Local school systems want to maintain their power and their control over education and what they think is important for education. They don't care about the parents who have walked away. They don't care. They don't care what they think. It is the height of arrogance. Yeah, we don't have time for. We should do that on an entire show. All right, guys. Got to run. We're over 2 hours now. I did change gears. I can do that. This is probably one of my my superpowers is to just keep talking about things that I care about. I've got other priorities too. I've got a family that's waiting for me, so I better call it a night. Thank you all for participating. If you want to support the show, go to OversightLIVE.com and become a supporter. Appreciate your participation today. I think we hit a new all-time high of members during the live show. Appreciate all your participation and good questions, good dialogue, good feedback. We'll chat with you again tomorrow night. Just so you're aware, I've got a meeting engagement on this Thursday. There will be no show this Thursday, but we'll have a show Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll catch you later.